Welcome to this week's Art Wisdom podcast with Chris and Kat. And this week we have a very special guest, Pilar Goga.
Hello, thank you for
Pilar.
having me here.
Welcome
Hi.
to the podcast. It's so great to have you here. And I'm going to leave it to you to introduce yourself and explain to everybody who you are and why you're on the podcast today.
My name is Pilar Goga. I'm from Spain. I'm also a space artist, like Kat. I paint with acrylics, oils. I use basically everything. And yeah, I started to run my business a few years ago, but I wasn't improving very much. I was stuck. I didn't know how to sell my paintings, how to price my paintings. So I started to talk with Kat, and I asked her how to improve, and she sent me the link to this podcast. I've been listening to it, and then I put into practice some things that I learned here.
Honestly, that makes me so happy. Does it make you happy, Chris?
Proud mama.
It's fantastic.
That's really great. So did you start painting a few years ago, or did you start actually trying to sell your paintings years ago?
I started to sell my paintings years ago.
Yeah.
Basically, I've been all my life painting.
Yes.
But actually, I studied English because I thought that being an artist, it was not a real job. You know, I had that in my mind.
Oh my goodness. I used to think that too. We've had a whole podcast about that.
Yeah.
But I feel you. And I think actually that's something that's really common. I feel like lots of people listening find it really hard to take themselves seriously because they've been told so many times, it's not a real job, get a real job. So you learn English as a to teach other people.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I learned to teach because I was thinking that, you know, it was like a more normal job. I met many artists who has studied fine art, but they don't know how to sell themselves. They don't know how to sell their artworks. So yesterday I was thinking that the difference between you can be a very good artist, but if no one knows you and you can sell anything,
it's very hard, and it can be very demoralizing as well, can't it? You know,
super demoralizing, because I think also there's also a little bit of ourselves in every piece of artwork. So if they're not selling or they're getting no interaction, it can be, you know, you can question yourself a lot. I think at least when I started, I was like, oh, you know what I mean? So I really feel that. And I think sometimes at the very beginning, it's not just understanding business, but it's like there's a mental game of keeping going while you build momentum, because at the beginning there's no momentum, and it's like you're not getting in the interactions or necessarily sales at the very beginning. Obviously that comes later, but that's after you've put in all this work. So it's like keeping going despite not always seeing instant results. That's an interesting one for sure.
And I think it should be a subject in fine art studies.
Yeah.
Like running a business.
Not actually. Is it not a subject in fine art studies?
Not in Spain. I don't know in other countries, but not in Spain.
Wow.
I don't think I've ever heard of an art course that actually talks about the psychology of persistence and that, because also, and I think I can't remember what episode we were talking about this, but gosh, every art piece has an ugly phase and you have to persist through that. And sometimes you really want to give up. Sometimes you do. I'll be honest, the last art piece I had, I put it in the bin. Twice.
I did the same. I did the same. I did the same 2 days ago.
I'll be honest. Fortunately, the bin was empty apart from my piece of artwork. But yeah, I put it in the big, like a big garbage can.
Did you get out of it?
I had enough. Flipped the lid and put it in, and I was like, I've had enough. and then walked out, and then 2 minutes back, come back, and I'm like, damn it, pull it out. And I was like, I've got to keep it another go. And then I gave up again, and I was like, oh, I should have given up the first time. And I think also, like, whenever you look online at artists, you don't see that. What you do is you see the final piece of the person standing next to their beautiful artwork. You might not see the challenges, and there are challenges. And so we get this false pretense. Everyone just pumps out perfect pieces. Even now, I still do stuff which I should, especially like when it's subject matter which I'm particularly familiar with. Sometimes you just have one that, for whatever reason, either the early direction of it or just your mindset or whatever it is that particular day, it's just not working out. Even when you've been doing it for years, and I think I think people forget, like, they go, oh, I don't create a masterpiece every single time. Is it me? Am I a terrible artist? Should I even be an artist? And I think that's common. Did you ever get that, Chris?
Oh yeah, there's stages where I do think I've done this a million times and I get to do it and I think I don't know what I'm doing. I don't, but I want to relate this back to business again, because business is exactly the same thing, where we see the finished product of everybody. We see all those ones on Instagram and we see that they're selling and all that. We don't see all that struggle in between, where everybody, you've been through it, you're going through it at this time. You don't hear about that because that doesn't really serve them to advertise that they're struggling with business right now. So, a lot of them will just fall through the cracks because they can't persist. But actually, persisting is fine, but you need new knowledge. And that's like, I'm glad, Pilar, you've been listening to the podcasts and getting some new knowledge and new information for yourself. And Kat tells me you did the auction.
I did an auction.
I am so excited about this. Yeah. So for anyone listening, a few episodes ago, we put out an episode which was like how to host your own auction. I'd run a small one myself. And Pilar put that. So Pilar, tell us about it. Actually, I would love to know more about the auction and how it went and all of that stuff.
Yeah, it was my first auction, and I was a bit scared. Uncertainty is difficult to deal with. I never found the moment to do like a launch. But I decided to do this auction after all these horrors that we are watching on TV with Ukraine people. I wanted to get some money to send. So during those days, like last month, I was not able to paint or concentrate myself. I was thinking, how can I help? And the only way that I can help is by selling my artwork and sending money. It's the only way that I can do. So I thought, okay, maybe this is the opportunity to do my first launch. Why not do an auction?
Fantastic.
So that was what pushed me to do the auction, because first of all, I think that you have to be persistent, but also you have to believe in yourself, and to have the mentality of, okay, I'm going to do this launch or I'm going to do this auction, and if it's not working, it doesn't matter.
Right.
There's nothing wrong.
100%. I think I did my very first launch in order to get my, to host an exhibition, because really my ulterior motive was to get my friends drunk, but which was not as a great a motive as helping the people of the Ukraine. And actually, I think that there's a lot to be said for, to help you get going, is to do things like this, because you might not necessarily want to put yourself out there, but if it's in order to support someone else or something else, then that's a really good way to get to start. And honestly, I just want to say, Pilar, this is such a sweet thought, thing for you to do as well, for you to help, because I think a lot of people are wondering how they can help themselves.
Yeah. So I decided to throw caution to the wind and send a story on Instagram. Yeah, the idea was to be during 1 week promoting the auction through Instagram and Twitter. But I could not do it everything by my own, because I don't have many followers. So I started to send messages to all the artists. Okay, can you help me, because it's something. Because I wanted to spray the word to get the money to send to Ukraine. So I asked them to share a story. Of course, not everyone did, but most of them did it. So I made a Google form, like Kat explained in the podcast. I made a Google form with some questions such as name, address, country to send, and the minimal bid. The minimal bid was 300 plus shipping cost. And the shipping cost would depend on the country. But this is very important. I previously worked with a company with good rates. So before doing the auction or the launch, taking
like working out the shipping.
You should have worked previously with a good company for shipping your artwork.
Yeah, I think also like just having, like, often before I do a big launch, because like different projects I have different size boxes and different weights, cost different things to ship, rather than shipping the same size, same weight every time. So what I'll do is I'll get mock addresses. I actually look up restaurants in different places and I use those and I put them into there's like usually online forms where you can like, it'll estimate how much things cost to ship, just so that I can work it out roughly. I know that it's not going to be exactly the same, and to be honest, shipping rates change by the day, but as long as you get a ballpark figure, that's usually quite helpful.
During that week I got 7 messages. And I was really impressed, because the final bid was $1,375.
Wow.
And it and it was a painting that I planned to sell for 300. So it was like, oh my God.
Now, there's so you got 10 bids overall, is that right?
Yeah.
So what? Okay, all right. Well, this is exciting for 2 reasons, right? So firstly, you have 10 new potential future clients that you can just reach out to.
Well, I got seven new
seven. And some people message multiple times. And so you've got 7 new potential clients that you already know. It's interesting when you run these auctions, because you understand, like, what kind of artwork they like, because they've bidded on specific art pieces. B, you know roughly what their budgets are for various different pieces, which is not something you're prescribing, something they are prescribing, which is super interesting. And see, then you also get to sell your own artwork at the highest value between all of these amazing people, and also then put those proceeds to help something, or or for other things, for funding people's own lives. But wow, that's incredible.
Because in June I made an exhibition. This painting was on sale, and I think it was like 325 euros. I think it was something like that. So I realized that well, as Kat told me once, my paintings are really cheap.
Yeah.
That's what a great realization is that, though. Hey.
Yes.
Yeah, because when I talked with Kat the first time, she told me two things. You paintings are really cheap.
Yeah.
And you should close your Etsy shop, because I had an Etsy shop.
Right.
And she explained to me the difference between craft and art. And yeah, I was thinking that my art was craft, and it's not craft. It's another thing. Is an idea. Is a feeling that what I'm selling is way of thinking. Is not craft.
That's true. We're not making wall decorations per se.
Yeah.
I mean, that might be its ultimate destination, but actual true art is about, it might be about bringing joy to someone. It might be about them connecting to the cosmos. It might be about them realizing that we're out here floating in a big ocean and we're all alone on this planet, and we have to look after each other. So that message is the art, and it's like, it's an invaluable asset. It's an invaluable thing. Obviously, the way in which you execute is a craft, but that's why abstract art still is so deeply valuable, because it's not necessarily like how hyper realistic someone can do something. No. It's about like really the intensity of the emotions that people feel when they look at the art. Because sometimes art might not make sense, but it just makes you feel a way, and that's wonderful. But sometimes it's about these deeper messages. But yeah, so that's a great takeaway.
Yeah, and if you don't believe in yourself, no one is going to do it. So you have to believe in yourself and believe in your art.
Can you see, Pilar, though, that the purpose that you gave this made you move? You didn't make it about, because we talk about, I think the second episode is about your purpose. You had a really compelling purpose to make you do things that you felt uncomfortable doing.
Yeah, definitely. It was this conflict. This conflict pushed me to do it, because I was really scared. But when I suffered watching all of this, it pushed me to you have to do something. You have to help.
Right.
You have to. So that was what pushed me to do the auction. Yeah, and I think that when you have to do it the first time, I think it's the most difficult thing that you have to that an artist have to do. The first launch, the first auction, the first.
Yeah.
Right. That first step can be a little daunting.
Yeah, you're putting yourself out there, and you don't know how it's going to be received. But that's the difference between, selling your art or not really. So you intend to do another auction?
Yeah, definitely. I would like to do another auction, but I also want to do a launch with my a shop. I would like to try also that.
Okay.
And I think maybe in 3-4 months I will do once.
But the only reason I'm asking you is because last time you had a really compelling reason to do it. Next time you do an auction, can you have a really compelling reason to do it for yourself? Like, it's great you're going to do a launch now for your own website, your own shop. That's fantastic. Because it's great as artists, we do have the capacity to produce things and make money for causes. But also, if you want to make a living of this, it's like you've got to have a purpose for that.
Yeah, sorry, Kat.
I was going to say, so actually, I guess this comes down to the question of what is the meaning of your artwork, and why are you compelled to make it, and why are you compelled to share that message, and what is that message?
Well, basically that we are not aware that we are connected to the cosmos, and we are not aware in our daily lives. We are not conscious about what is out there. If we were more conscious, there wouldn't be any war. There wouldn't be any any fight between culture countries. Basically sometimes I think why politicians don't think very much about what is out there. Why we are not so conscious, because we are always studying our planet and the Milky Way, and that's it. But when there are many people that don't know what a nebula is.
It's true.
And
it's very true.
there are many people that ask me, and this is from your imagination or you watch it? And it's
not
like,
quite.
really, you don't know what a nebula is, or really?
Right.
I think if we were more conscious about it, there wouldn't be so many differences between us, because we are all the same.
Yeah,
doesn't matter the country, and that's why I like very much to talk with people in other languages and to know other cultures, because I think we are all the same.
Yeah, we are.
It is true. And I remember you explaining your purpose is like when we spoke weeks before any of this things with the Ukraine, way before, which was I remember you saying something along the lines of this cosmic perspective, how it when you look at Earth from a distance and it's this tiny precious blue marble in the sky, the borders between countries make less sense, and that it's like this concept of unity. So it's interesting because even with the cause, it actually kind of fits in very deeply with your purpose. So really for the next launch, it's just hyper focusing on not necessarily specifically like this is a specific nebula, but being able to, as you just did, like talk so passionately about bringing people together.
Yeah, because at the beginning, when I was selling my artwork, at the beginning I was saying, well, I remember I did like 3-4 years ago an exhibition, and it was, this is an acrylic painting and this is an oil painting, and that's it. And and I was not able to I was embarrassed to explain that message.
Yeah.
However, 3 years later, in last June, I did the last exhibition. It was a completely change, because I realized that what I'm selling, what I'm sharing with the world is the message. It's not the craft, is the message.
Right.
That's something that not artists know.
Yes.
I love the way that you said, you got that realization that you were embarrassed to explain your art.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the crux of it for everybody, isn't it? Really, if you're sort of trying to find your feet, it's like, don't be embarrassed to I suppose it's your voice. You found your voice.
Yeah.
And now it's the connection is there because you found your voice around it, and you're quite happy to stand your ground and speak your truth.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And I think that also like beyond just sharing your artwork, which is also like even the craft of it is quite personal to a degree, but then when it comes to the actual message, there's always these thoughts in the back of your head, like, what happens if people think I'm an idiot, or they don't like it, or they shun me for some reason, like, boo, right? Because also some people's artworks, like, might be quite like the reason why they do it. They still might like, because I think that sometimes it takes a while to understand, like occasionally we are compelled to produce things and we don't quite know why, and you have to do a lot of this like introspection to realize, oh, actually this is why I'm into it. Like, even for me, like I think it took me years. I was the same. I was like, this is a picture of our galaxy. Hadn't even occurred to me that the reason why I was so obsessed with it is because, like, for me, this was like almost like my spirituality. Like, I'm not religious, but that was like how I connected to things.
Yeah.
So it's and sometimes you have to explain reveal parts of your soul that, I don't know, I found it deeply embarrassing. Especially like some people's artworks are like also about personal trauma or challenges, or like a time when they didn't feel safe. So now they produce artworks that make people feel safe. But then you've got to go there to that place that it's always a challenge, and that can be hard. But I think once you see it starting to help people, like, honestly, Chris, I keep on thinking about that story of that woman who bought that picture of a bird, cock rooster, Do you want to explain that?
Yeah. I listened to it. The house that it was burned, and she bought you a. Yeah, that was
she
a
just
really
seen it
nice,
in the
nice story.
gallery and kept walking past it. You're like, I've got to have it. A little colourful rooster. You know how much difference that can make to somebody. It was like her whole art collection had been burnt down, the house had been burnt down, but this was like a little starter to what's next, you know, because like mine are all colourful and joyous, my paintings. I love the color. So that really touched me, you know, because we all go through those things where you're not selling and it's like, oh, you know, sometimes it's just too hard, and then somebody tells you a story like that and you think, oh my god, I didn't realize what I did meant that much to somebody else. And you think, oh, that touches you, doesn't it?
I had a similar experience, which, by the way, I'm so glad that lady got that little rooster and started her collection off and brought a bit of joy to her life. And when you hear that, it makes doing those scary things, they're still scary, but it gives you more compelled. It makes you more compelled to, you know, it gives you more, I don't know, muster to go.
Because saying like scary, that it was an art shop. The woman's a bit, you know, I'd gone in and I was nervous going in. I went in, paintings tucked under my arm. Some she just went over and went, oh, it's too simple. And she stood like, she said, I can see you can paint, as she pointed at things. And I was like, oh God, you know, it painted for years, that, you know, but it's like, I can see you can paint. And I thought, oh my God. And then she kept a few, and you know, you come out and you're like, oh my God.
Terrified,
Thinking yourself in that situation to you have to just do it, don't you?
But I like that idea of sometimes you have to do it and you have to do it scared.
Well, when you're doing it scared, you know you're doing a big thing, you know you're having a leap.
I had like a similar scenario. I don't know if I've told this story, but I recently met up with someone that had bought a print. Actually, it wasn't even an original. And they brought it to me a year after they purchased it, and I signed it, and they cried, and it was such a beautiful moment. But I was not expecting someone to cry over the signing of a print. But then they explained why. And the person was a resuscitation nurse, and they came online during the beginning of COVID, which like they were there doing the chest compressions at the very last moment when the people's lungs were like full with gel, and they knew that they weren't going to survive. And they've got like the family on Zoom watching them, and they're just going to try and save this person's life. And how insanely hard that job is. And I can't remember if they said it was on the day that they purchased the artwork or on the day that it arrived, but they had the hardest day of their life. And they still get a bit of PTSD. They still see the face of the dead people that they didn't save that day. And I think on that particular day, it was their worst day ever. It was in the height of coronavirus, and they lost like 5 people or something like that, 3 to 5 people. So incredibly hard. And he was explaining that he would go to this room with all these pictures of space, and he would just meditate and like reconnect to the universe, and how much that made them feel. So me coming and signing this painting was such a big deal. And I sat there and thought, wow, I had no idea that art could be, sometimes you think, oh, it's just a picture, but actually the meanings are so important.
Pilar, before we finish, do you have any questions that you'd like to ask either of us?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you some questions. One of them is, how do you deal with uncertainty and the fear of failure?
How do you deal with, say that word again?
Uncertainty.
Uncertainty. Yeah, sorry. Uncertainty and fear of failure.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
coming out with the big questions.
That's a big uncertainty and the fear of failure. I think I'm thinking break it down more. What is it that you're scared of? Like, it's fear of failure. Fear of failure is a big thing, a big word. I think people use that a lot of the time, but it doesn't actually mean anything. It's like, break it down more to find out, what are you scared of? What are you actually afraid of?
Right.
A lot of things
Okay.
for me is being humiliated. I don't want to look an idiot or feel, so humiliation is a thing for me where I have to put myself in a comfortable position. So, I've got enough knowledge, or I've practiced enough, so I feel comfortable. So what would failure? Because not doing anything, you fail anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is it that you're actually afraid
I
of?
like that idea. I like the idea of breaking it down. Like, for instance, some days I'm just like, I'm overwhelmed and stressed. And it's like, well, what's creating it? So,
yeah,
like,
I
Karen, sorry.
yeah, I wanted to say that it's normal that you are overwhelmed because you do so many things that every time that I watch you on Twitter, it's like, oh my God, I do one thing and I'm so and I'm terrified, and you do so many things that I think that was a great question for you, Kat. How do you deal with so many?
Well, I think that's actually so as Chris said, you break it down, right? So often what I'll do, if I'm feeling and sometimes I realize that it's not just one dominant thing. It could be like a haze of different situations that are making you feel in a particular way. So I get a big bit of paper and I write in the middle, what the hell is, like, what the hell, like, why do I feel so bad? Or what is getting me down? Or what are my challenges right now? And I will fill everything. I'll just write, even the stupid stuff, like, some days I feel blocked on doing a particular task because I feel bad about the fact that I've not got my tax done, or I've got a meeting coming up and I've not prepared a slide deck, or do you know what I mean? Like, or it could be something just really small, like, oh God, I've got all of this stuff and my house is a mess, or, I've got to wash my clothes because I got to go on a trip, or so, sometimes it's like small things, but like a million small things add up, So I'll write everything down, but that's more about like current situations and dealing with stress and anxiety, versus like understanding underlying fear. And I think there is there's a good value to asking the question, is this really true, and where did this come from? In order to seek a bit of clarity on like what, where, how, like, like realizing that I was scared of doing specific things. Like for you might, you might say like, oh, I'm scared about doing YouTube, going on YouTube or doing this kind of thing because I feel, I don't feel confident with my English, let's say, hypothetically. That might be something that you might find a block. So the question is then, is that really true? Like, is it really a problem? Like you have many great, so I often then sit and rationalize, because I think it's really important to actually rationalize all these things, right? Where you have all of these great conversations in a foreign language with other people, and you're capable of teaching people and all of these things. So is it really true? Well, not really. It's just a thing that you're feeling at the time.
I suppose it's the syndrome impostor that you have it in your mind, in your ears, talking to you.
And I think also then catching the language, Chris is the best at this, catching the language of, say, when you catch yourself saying, oh, I can't do this, I'm not good at it, catching it, like grab the words and then changing them. What Chris, what's your advice on that? Because a lot of it is about what we tell ourselves, how we feel.
Just awareness, like even the language you're using, like terrified. It's when you use those words, just try and catch yourself when you do, because that's a strong word. Terrified is a really strong word. I would say to you to get that out of your vocabulary to start with. Doesn't serve you. Any of these words that you use constantly, that you find yourself over again and you go, gosh, I say that all the time. I say that. Start becoming aware of when you just say them, and then replace them with something else. Because actually, you're saying you're terrified. You're probably actually not terrified. You're terrified. You stand on the edge of the cliff and somebody's going to throw you over. You're terrified. Actually, going on a YouTube channel, are you really? Are you feeling a little bit butterflies? Is it a little bit, you could call it nervous, you could call it excited. Nervous and excitement, they're the same feelings. They're the same stomach. If you feel them yourself, acknowledge at the time, you'll feel that they're a similar feeling. And if you switch your brain over to go, I'm excited. It's not nervous. I'm excited now. Oh, my nerves is coming, and I'm excited about doing this.
Yeah, it's like when you're on a roller coaster and you hear people scream. You actually do, like, there are people that are screaming that are having a terrible time. There's people screaming that are having a good time. And the only thing that's made the difference between whether they have a good time or a terrible time is they've decided this is fun, or they've decided this is terrifying. It's really interesting. There is a fine line.
That's true.
Right. I say this quote quite often, but there was this thing about these two potential future rock stars, and one, they were about to go on stage, and the first one said, oh, I'm about to go on stage and perform. My hands are shaking, my palms are sweaty, my heart is racing, I feel like I'm going to have a heart attack. I can't do this, I'm so scared, I can't go out there. And then this other rock star come out, and they said, oh my God, I'm about to go on stage, my hands are trembling, my palms are sweaty, my heart is racing, this is the biggest adrenaline rush, this is better than sex, oh my gosh, this is so exciting, let's do it. Right? So the body reactions are the same between excitement and fear. There is, the only difference is whether how you label it. So the words that you say to yourself are incredibly powerful. So if you find yourself saying, this is very terrifying all the time, like, you don't know, you just snatch those words back and go, no, actually, I need to not label it that, because actually that label can actually do more damage sometimes than the actual, that actually makes it sometimes feel more intense, or the way that you assign it, you're suddenly the person on the stage going, oh, I'm having a panic attack, versus the person on stage saying, this is better than sex, right? Awesome. So Pilar, do you have another question?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, what if a collector doesn't like the work once it arrives?
Right. That's such a great question, because
especially when you send online.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot to be learned from this, because I've also had the same things happen right now, years in. I had someone make a request for a design, so I painted the design, but they didn't really like it, even though it was the agreed upon design, because that's sometimes how it works. So sometimes I will, so in this particular case, I can make a small amendment to the painting, and it's actually not what we'd originally agreed on, but it will make it look better. And I know it will make it look better, and that's okay. I think also there's a lot to be done about setting the framework at the beginning. So making people aware of what they're getting, and sending them in advance highly detailed scans of the artwork before they're, especially if it's an online purchase. So send them one of those that is like neutral color balance. So it's not like, because obviously when we see things on Instagram, and you don't know how bright someone's phone screen is, so that the painting might look significantly brighter. And then in addition to that, I always send them a booklet about how to display artwork, because what a piece looks like in studio lighting is not what it looks like under dim yellow lighting, right? And it can zap all of the color and intensity and all of that kind of stuff. So I always send like an information pack about actually how to even display the artwork, because that can really change the experience of an artwork as well, just the light that's been shone onto it. What would you do if you have someone that doesn't like an art piece, Chris?
I've only had it where, you know, it's still in the studio, and then I've sent pictures along the way. So it's still, you know, and they said, oh, can you do this a bit more and that? And if it fits in with, you know, that it would enhance it, or, you know, if it doesn't, then I'll explain to them why that's probably not a very good idea. But, you know, in some cases I've gone, yeah, that's fine. I can make that, you know, whatever.
Make an adjustment.
Yeah, make an adjustment for them. But I've never had it when they've actually got it back at
yeah, I think
because we've been through that process of, you know, it's a commission, they've seen photographs, they see the end photograph. So as far as I'm concerned, it's like you've seen what it is, you know. So I've had that.
Yeah, so because it is a challenge, and I've had it more than once actually. Yeah. So I've either added an amendment to it and been like, okay, just, you know, either send it back, or you know, we can make an amendment to it, or whatever it is. Sometimes though, it's the process of varnishing is not complete, and that's really important, in particular with oil paintings. You know, they go sort of, they're chalky, and they lose all their luster, and they lose all their intensity and vividness until you can varnish them 6 months after they've been made.
So I must clarify, that's for your type of paintings.
That's specifically for oil, oil painting.
Not all oil paintings. Like I don't.
Oh yeah, because you do really thick.
They don't need to. It's just that don't freak out. You don't need to
varnish. Right. Okay. Yeah. So some paintings, if you're not making a textural oil painting, if you're making like a, you know,
a lot of them you don't have to.
Don't you? Interesting. Well, all oil cures, and it cures at a slightly different color. So it depends. Like, I'll obviously use lots of different brands of oil paint, but most of them do cure, but it takes 12 months. So you often don't see that fade until much later. Now, if you've sold it and you haven't varnished, at least with every brand of oil paint I've ever used, I have to go back and varnish it, and it's very important, and that can impact how people experience something.
How do you do it? Because if you sell a painting, you're gonna wait for 12 months before sending.
Yeah, well, it's always a conversation I have prior to prior to payment. I'll say, do you want this varnished or not? And here's the implications of either.
Okay.
So but I always recommend that it is, because it's good. It's actually good to protect your pieces as well, especially if you're doing like detail work. So there's that. So on the instance when someone has purchased something and they've got, like, say for instance, hypothetically, that a wrong item has arrived, or it's not quite what they wanted, often what I will do is I will say, you know, I can, you know, obviously all sales are final, and it's really important that's in all of my terms and conditions. However, if another buyer appears for that piece, then, you know, I will provide the refund from like those monies. But almost always the value of the painting has gone up, so it will be resold again at a higher value. The person will be refunded, and then of course the difference is then used to ship the piece over. So that's something that I've also done. But that's with print. So, you know, maybe someone's ordered a print and they've decided they didn't necessarily want it, or they got the wrong design or something, and they go, oh no, got the wrong one. I'll say, okay, you know, the sales are final because everything's made to order. But if there is another buyer for it, then I can get it sent to that buyer. And I will, depending on the coordination of it, either they'll send it back to me. Yeah, you know, most often they'll send it back to me, and I'll wrap it and resend it. So that's another option too. But sometimes it's just a really good opportunity to have a frank, open, honest, curious discussion as to how they feel about the piece. And that can be quite daunting, but there could be lots to be learned from those situations. So, you know, it might be that, you know, you know, and it might help you steer the way that you sell pieces in the future, and how you, because I believe that that setting expectations is really important. Like in particular, when I'm working with commissions, you know, I have to explain to people that the reference images are actual real photographs from the actual universe. And this is going to be a painting. So it's going to look like a painting and not like a photograph. And, you know, so there's lots of things like that. And I think that, yeah, I think the most important thing also, or, you know, you can't always please everyone all the time. And people often have different expectations. So if they've only ever seen prints of actual photographs, you know, they might not realize that a painting looks like a painting. You can see brush strokes and you can see, you know, all sorts of bits of stuff like that. And depending on how you light it, it's going to look different. You know, if you look at it on different devices, when they come to purchase, the colors are going to look slightly different too. And that's okay. You know, so being able to have those conversations with people prior to the purchase, which I know it doesn't help you in this situation right now, but it will definitely help you in the future. And I think this is an important thing for everyone that does online selling. You know, I always get all my artwork scanned before I send it anyway, because I want to make prints. But, you know, slightly down res that file and then send it to them prior to the order, you know, so that they can, you know, see in detail what it is they're getting, and that can help as well. I think, and also the other.
Sorry, Kat. Sorry, I think as well. I was going to say it's not to take it personally, you know, because that can be a really, you know, hard thing. So it's like to have that conversation, like Kat said, but to not take it personally, because it's here. Like maybe I'll learn something for next time. I'll change how I do it.
Yeah. And even having that conversation with, look, I'd love to chat about it, but not, you know, because, you know, I'm more than happy to organize, you know, to resell the piece and organize a refund that way. But also because I'd love to learn and I'd love to do better. So if you could give me any, you know, pointers. Now, I've had people return stuff with like, it had like a tiny, almost like a fleck of paint in the wrong place. And I recognized there wasn't anything wrong with the painting. It might be that they were actually financially in a difficult position and that's why they needed the money. And it's easier to say, I don't like it, or it's not good enough, than to say, actually, I just need a refund because I've fallen on hard times, because that can also be very embarrassing for people to admit. So they'll just put it on in a different way. So just be aware that that might also be a situation playing out.
Yeah.
Well, the last question. Have you ever asked for help when running your art business? Because it's difficult asking for help. It's really
all
difficult.
the time. All the time. And you know, like I've had other businesses as well, and it's been a learning curve. It's been a learning curve to ask for help, because you know, been in business for 15, 20 years, and you've been in business by yourselves, really having to learn every skill that you learn, till like me and Kat met at a business group. It's a business mentoring group that we're in. Until that, really, it took me a few years even in the group to be able to start asking for help, because it's wasn't a natural thing for me to do, because I've never really had anybody in business to help me. So it's really cool. Once you actually get the hang of it, it's so much fun. Because you're not on your own anymore, are you, Kat? You know,
that's right.
Kat.
I think it can be hard, you know, because it can be embarrassing. Like, and also it's like the context of and situation. You know, I wouldn't necessarily ask for specific help via my art page, because of course you also want to put forward a positive persona, and it's not necessarily something that you would want to put client facing, but it's certainly in my personal channels. But you know, I would say, Pilar, that actually you are the master at this, because you know, you reached out to me, right?
Yeah.
And it was a beautiful, you'd written a beautiful message. And I just think that I think it was amazing, you know, and like a lot of people wouldn't do that. And so what, you know, and I'm so glad you did.
Oh,
And
thank you.
so
Would you
actually,
mind if
I would like to
would
put
you
this
mind if
back
I
on.
tell you this story?
Yeah, I'm going to put it back on you. So you tell us how to do it.
Well, I started to paint a space art like 5 years ago. Well, I've been painting all my life, but space art 5 years ago. And I didn't see Kat until 1 year, more or less, on Instagram. And the first time that I watched it, that I watched her, I was so I couldn't sleep. That it was like, oh my God, she's been because she also has been 5 years like me.
Yeah.
So I compared myself, something that you don't have to, because you only have to compare with yourself. But I compare myself with her, and then I saw that she did so many things in 5 years, and I was like almost in the same point. So the first moment was so shocking that I had like a few days to realize. So after that, I realized that she was like my teacher. She could be like my teacher. It was like, okay, if she did it, it's like it's possible to do it. So what did she do? What did she do that I can do by my own? So I started to analyze her. I analyzed.
We've all done this, I think.
I analyzed the Instagram, the paintings, then I realized she had also a team. So okay, I was able that I was only by my own, and she had a team. So okay, but in 5 years time, what can I do to have a team? What did she do it? So I started to copy her. Yeah. And then once she told me, you sent me a message and you told me that my hour was fabulous.
Yeah, it was, because you're a deeply, deeply talented artwork. Sometimes I look at yours and I'm like, oh, I've got to learn how to paint.
Oh, thank you, Kat. And there's also a funny thing. A friend of mine sent you my Instagram because I told my friend, I showed my friend your Instagram, but I was not able to write to you. So a friend of mine wrote to you and told you, oh, this is Pilar Goga. Have you seen this? So when you told me, oh, your painting is so nice, so fabulous and nice, then I say, okay, I have to tell her what she has been in my life. Because you have been like a reference, you know, you have been like a before and after. So I told her a long text, and I thought she's not going to reply, but she's going to think I'm crazy. But she replied, and we are here.
Right, the rest is history.
And there you go. You took the chance. And here you are. Here you are. You know. That's fantastic.
So yeah, I was wondering if you did the same as me. Like, did you ask for help? I was actually it took time to me to ask you for help. It took a few months.
I actually have reached out to multiple artists, and not everyone's going to be very forthcoming, so it turns out, and share what they do, and that's a-okay. It didn't deter me from continuing to explore it. I looked at lots of different ways of improving where I'm at, whether it's watching YouTube. Honestly, I think when the first time I had a successful campaign, I went to YouTube and would put in, what do artists do all day? Because I've got no idea. Right. You know, but I've reached out to, you know, I've actually not had lots and lots of deep conversations. However, I think what happens is you just interact online, you find the person, or not necessarily the person, but the group, you know, and I found Chris and I instantly knew that we would be best friends for our entire lives. I just knew. Sometimes you just do, don't you? And again, like we just throw around ideas and all of that stuff too. But I also sometimes like, so it depends on the actual topic. Because it's funny because like talking to people that aren't artists about art business, for some reason, they start to assign stuff that they would never tell a normal business to an artist. So just to be aware of where you're getting advice from, because, you know, so I'm like, you know, but then on sometimes, so like I'll ask someone about like how to specifically do email marketing in another business, and that's fine. But if you ever ask often, like, oh, how do I make my art business successful to someone outside of, for some reason, they tell you to do stuff that they would never say to a normal business. I don't know why.
That's very true. That's very true. And it's so important to be careful who you ask. Yeah.
So, of course, like, take advice from people who have done the thing that you want to do. Taking advice from, you know, spectators, because it's not, you know, from the outset, the way that the path forward looks one way, but it actually isn't often that way. So, you know, I always like to talk to people that have actually done it or achieved it or whatever it is. So, you know, I remember I reached out to, oh God, I think his name's Thimja. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's like Nordic, but he had lots of success on video on Facebook. So I sent him a big message, and he responded back, and we talk all the time now, and he's so lovely. But you know, I do it a lot now, but at the beginning it's a bit daunting, isn't it? You know, and it doesn't matter how experienced you are. Sometimes it can be harder when you're really experienced, because you're like, oh God, everyone's going to think, why is she asking me? She should know this.
Yeah, but I think it's really important what you said there, Kat, as picking your topics. You know, if there's somebody who's really good on email marketing, somebody who's really good on Insta, the individual people to do that.
Seek the person that actually has the knowledge, you know, or it
doesn't have to be art related, does it?
Doesn't have to be art related, but don't necessarily ask someone that sells something random to like how you should position and sell a piece of artwork, for instance. However, they might be able to talk about another business aspect. So yeah, get the right person for the right question, I guess, is important.
So what are we doing next week, Kat?
Right. Well,
it's great to have you, Pilar. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me here. I really had a good time. I'm so happy to be here.
It's been amazing. Thank you, Pilar. So for everyone else watching, have you got questions for Pilar? Let us know in the comments. As always, all our social links are in the description. Please make sure you give us a follow so you can catch future episodes. Our next episode, we're going to be talking about how to get clients through email. Very excited. But until then, I'll see you.
Bye.
Bye.